Sarah was born in the early 1970s and was very close to her sister, Nancy. Their father was an Air Force officer, so the family moved several times during Sarah's childhood. When Sarah was 6, the family relocated again, this time to New Mexico, USA. It was here that Sarah entered school, and IQ tests revealed that she was exceptionally gifted, particularly in mathematics and the exact sciences. Sarah was known for her charm, energy, and sociable personality, often seen wearing large glasses and always with a smile. In the 1980s, Sarah graduated from high school and went on to attend a mining university in New Mexico where she received a scholarship. Despite living away from her family, she kept in touch, especially with Nancy, who lived only an hour away. During this time, Sarah met a young man named Paul Cohen. After graduation, Sarah earned her bachelor's degree, and the couple got married. Sarah then pursued a master's degree while Paul started a job in Washington, D.C. The couple moved there and Sarah put her studies on hold. At 30, Sarah found work as a contractor for the National Security Agency, NSA, where she was tasked with deciphering classified information. She quickly gained a reputation as a responsible and skilled employee. Meanwhile, Sarah had developed a passion for writing murder mystery novels, something she loved as a hobby. During her time at the NSA, she met a colleague named Laura Beater. The two women grew close, spending a lot of time together and supporting one another. Through Laura, Sarah became more interested in the idea of motherhood. However, after 3 years of marriage, Sarah and Paul started drifting apart. Their relationship began to deteriorate, and Sarah felt increasingly alienated. In 1990, Sarah enrolled at Johns Hopkins University to continue her studies at this prestigious institution. There she met Lorenz Raros, a 25-year-old man who worked at a local telecommunications company. Lorenz came from a tight-knit Filipino family, and he was caring, attentive, and warm. Their relationship grew into a deep and tender romance, and by September 7, 1994, they were married. By 1997, Sarah and Lorenz had moved to a small town in Maryland where they bought a house together. At 33, Sarah gave birth to their first child, a boy named Will. During this period, Sarah grew close to Lorenz's family, especially his mother, Emile, who worked in a nursing home and often helped take care of the baby. However, Sarah began to feel that Lorenz wasn't as attentive to their son or to her needs as she had hoped. Lorenz, on the other hand, grew jealous of Sarah's attention to their child, and the couple's relationship became strained. In the midst of these tensions, Lorenz stopped taking his antidepressants, which led to even more controlling behavior towards Sarah. Unable to resolve their issues, Sarah sought advice from Lorenz's mother, but Emile refused to interfere in the couple's relationship. By June 1998, Sarah had filed for divorce. Lorenz moved out, and Sarah threw herself into her work and raising their son. Despite the challenges, Sarah became known as a dedicated and strong mother who managed to balance her career and family life. She even started taking up horse riding as a hobby while also continuing to work on her detective novel. However, her divorce process was delayed due to disagreements, and on December 3, 1998, the final decision on custody was still pending. On Friday, November 13, 1998, Sarah took her son to his father for the weekend and spent Saturday with her friend Laura. They went shopping and had plans to call each other the next morning. However, Sarah never called. Laura tried to reach her friend, but when she checked her answering machine, she heard a chilling message from the previous evening. 40 seconds of horror. The recording started with several blows, followed by inaudible female screams and a struggle. There was also the sound of heavy coughing and wheezing. In a panic, Laura called Sarah's number repeatedly, but no one answered. The line was busy. Desperate, Laura contacted the local police, fearing that something terrible had happened to Sarah. When officers arrived at Sarah's home, they immediately noticed a broken window and an alarm going off. Inside, they found Sarah's lifeless body on the living room floor, positioned unnaturally in a pool of blood. The scene was gruesome, with the walls also splattered in blood, suggesting extreme brutality. The child was missing, and there were signs of a violent struggle. Sarah had been viciously beaten, with numerous abrasions, particularly around her abdomen, chest, and neck. The severity of the attack indicated personal animosity. The victim's head had been almost severed from the body and deep cuts were found on her wrists. The crime scene was so horrific that investigators initially suspected ritualistic overtones. However, they believed the attacker was unable to fully decapitate Sarah. The police discovered bloody shoe prints leading from the body to the broken window, indicating that the killer entered and exited through the window, likely using the dense forest behind the house to escape. It appeared that the attacker knew Sarah well and was familiar with the layout of the house. Forensic scientists found several bloodstains and smeared handprints, but no fingerprints were left, suggesting the killer wore gloves. During a search of the house, a machete with blood on the blade and handle was discovered in the courtyard. That evening, Laura went to Sarah's house and was shocked to find it surrounded by police tape. The investigation into Sarah's tragic death was just beginning. The crime scene became even more horrifying when Laura learned of her friend's tragic fate. From that moment, she was most concerned about the fate of Sarah's son. However, the police could not provide any information at that time. It was later revealed that the child was supposed to be with his father. Officers began interviewing neighbors, hoping someone might have seen something suspicious. Unfortunately, aside from the machete, which was sent for examination, no other valuable clues emerged. The following day, news of the tragic incident spread throughout the district, including to Sarah's colleagues at the NSA. Her family, who lived 1,000 kilometers away in Alabama, was also notified. Sarah's sister, Nancy, was especially devastated. Experts analyzed the recording from Sarah's answering machine and confirmed that it indeed contained sounds of violence. Detectives determined that the attack occurred shortly before the window was broken. Sarah had tried to call for help but accidentally dialed Laura's number. In her panic, she left a dying message for her friend. Laura was instrumental in assisting the investigation. She described Sarah's recent life in detail, emphasizing how the couple's relationship had deteriorated. Laura was convinced that the only person capable of committing such a crime was Sarah's ex-husband, Lorenz. She explained that Lorenz had been very jealous of their son, and that his mental health had deteriorated since he stopped taking his prescribed antidepressants. Laura also knew that Lorenz owned several firearms, including 2 revolvers and 2 rifles, making him a serious threat. Despite this, Sarah had tried to maintain a cordial relationship with him, even persuading him to sell the guns before their divorce. The couple's divorce had been filled with conflict. Lorenz had become increasingly manipulative, and during their separation, he had threatened Sarah. One particular incident occurred on June 27th, when Lorenz took their son after Sarah handed him divorce papers. He beat her and took the child, saying she would never see him again. Later he returned and demanded sex from her as a condition for her not losing custody of their son. Sarah, fearing for her child, eventually called the police. But Lorenz justified his actions, claiming everything was legal since he still lived in the house. The officers, although uncomfortable with his behavior, couldn't arrest him, and Sarah was forced to leave with her child in a patrol car. By June 29th, Sarah had filed for a restraining order against Lorenz. The legal battle over custody and alimony had begun, but Lorenz continued to harass her. He even threatened to take their son abroad. Despite these threats, Lorenz's lawyer claimed that Sarah was guilty of emotional abuse and infidelity. The custody arrangement temporarily granted Lorenz visitation rights, but the tension continued to escalate. Lorenz's behavior had become erratic, and detectives began to suspect him in Sarah's murder. Neighbors, however, were unable to provide any useful information, and no surveillance footage was available. Further investigation revealed that Sarah had made one final phone call on November 13th, just before her death, and detectives pieced together that she was terrified of Lorenz's potential revenge, given the divorce proceedings were nearing completion. Sarah had even confided in Laura that she kept a frying pan under her bed for protection, highlighting how fearful she had become in the final months of her life. The day before her murder, Sarah had spoken with Laura about her son's future, fearing Lorenz's influence. Just 3 weeks before the trial's conclusion, Sarah's worst fear became a reality. On November 16th, Lorenzo was informed of Sarah's death. He collapsed in front of the officers and burst into sobs. However, an officer noticed that when Lorenzo stood up, his face was dry, a clear attempt to mislead the police with false emotion. Lorenzo was taken to the station for questioning, but he maintained his innocence. He claimed to have been at home with his family during the time of Sarah's murder. His alibi, however, was unreliable due to the strained relationship with his family. Lorenzo then suggested that Sarah's ex-boss, Don Lewis, could have been the killer. He claimed that Sarah had been having an affair with him and that the NSA employee might have killed her to cover up the affair. Despite this theory, detectives remained focused on Lorenzo, as the attack's brutality indicated a personal motive. After questioning Lorenzo, detectives found no direct evidence linking him to the crime, but the investigation continued. Forensic tests on the machete revealed Sarah's blood, but the DNA didn't match any of the suspects. The silence lasted for months, with no significant leads. However, the case took a crucial turn when NSA agents took over the investigation, utilizing advanced technology and expertise. Forensic experts concluded that Sarah had died from a severe wound to the neck, which caused a massive loss of blood. Other injuries, including cuts to her wrists and punctures to her lungs and liver, had also contributed to her death. Further examination of the answering machine recording suggested that Sarah had uttered the name Mike during her last moments, potentially identifying the killer. Lorenzo's brother, Mike, became a person of interest, and when questioned, he acted nervously but didn't offer any valuable information. Eventually, Lorenzo's previous wife, Becky, agreed to cooperate with the investigation by wearing a wire and trying to extract information from him. Despite her efforts, Lorenzo refused to reveal anything. Finally, a breakthrough came in June 1999 when a crucial phone call was received by the Baltimore County Police Department. This would prove to be a turning point in the investigation. The case took a shocking twist when a crucial lead came from an unexpected source. Ardale Tickles, an 18-year-old man already in prison for shooting his former boss, confessed to the murder of Sarah Raros. He had made this confession to a cellmate, revealing in gruesome detail how he had killed the woman. Ardale's confession, in exchange for a reduced sentence, was recorded with a hidden microphone. In his confession, Ardale explained how he had entered Sarah's house through a window, violently attacked her, and then attempted to crush her head under his feet, but failed. He admitted that he was hired by a former colleague who promised him $5,000 to carry out the murder. Ardale described Sarah in very negative terms, claiming she was a bad person and that he had been told she was responsible for the miscarriage of his close friend. According to Ardale, these stories fueled his anger, and he was willing to kill Sarah for a matter of honor. Despite doubts about the validity of his words, Ardale was able to provide specific details of the attack, such as the location and sequence of events, which had not been made public. This made the police believe he might indeed be the murderer. However, when Ardale was shown photographs of the primary suspects, he did not recognize anyone, and strangely, he could not even remember the name of the person who had hired him. As the investigation progressed, Ardale revealed more about his background. He had grown up in a troubled environment with a schizophrenic mother and a violent childhood. Although he had no prior criminal record, he was described as very aggressive and easily manipulated. When he was shown a photo of Emily Lorenz, one of the key suspects, he immediately recognized her as the person who had hired him. Shockingly, he admitted that he had been manipulated by her and was now horrified to learn how he had been deceived into committing the crime. He revealed that Sarah was not a racist and that her only crime in Emily's eyes was standing in the way of her family's control over her son. Emily Lorenz, Lorenz's mother, was eventually identified as the mastermind behind the murder. She had been bitter about Sarah's refusal to obey her and the way Sarah had distanced herself from Lorenz's family. Emily, who was from the Philippines, viewed Sarah's assertiveness as a direct insult to her cultural values, which placed a heavy emphasis on family hierarchy and obedience to mothers. Emily's resentment toward Sarah had grown over time, and she had transferred this hate onto Ardale, using her own grievances to turn him against an innocent woman. When confronted by the police, Emily admitted to the conflicts with Sarah and even claimed that Sarah's refusal to listen to her had hurt her deeply. She insisted that the murder was justified in her eyes because Sarah's behavior was seen as a form of disrespect. Emily's justification for the murder was chilling. She felt that Sarah had to be removed in order to protect her family's honor and secure her grandson's future. In January 2000, Emily's trial began. The prosecution argued that Emily had persuaded Ardale, a naive 17-year-old, to murder Sarah, driven by her fear of losing custody of her grandson. Despite Emily's claims that she only wanted to intimidate Sarah, not kill her, the evidence painted a different picture. Ardale had known the house's layout, had no problem bypassing the security, and had been paid $3,000 for the job. This strongly indicated that the murder was not an attempt at intimidation, but a calculated killing. The court found Emily guilty of first-degree murder and conspiracy to murder. Her sentence was life imprisonment, without the possibility of parole. During the trial, Emily claimed that she never intended for Sarah's death to occur, but no one believed her. She wept in court, claiming remorse, but the jury saw through her manipulative behavior. Lorenz, her son, was not directly implicated in the conspiracy. Though his mother maintained that he had no knowledge of her plans, Sarah's family and the detectives believed he might have had some involvement or at least knew more than he let on. In March 2000, Lorenz made a deal with the prosecution, admitting to his involvement in the crime and expressing remorse. His confession spared him from trial, and he was sentenced to life imprisonment but was granted parole in 2009 for his cooperation. Lorenz claimed that he had been unaware of his mother's involvement in Sarah's murder, and he said he regretted his actions, praying for Sarah's family daily. Emily, despite her conviction, tried to appeal her sentence in 2009, claiming that she had reformed in prison, become more religious, and was now a kinder person. Her appeal was rejected. In February 2023, Lorenz passed away in prison at the age of 57. Emily, at 88 years old, is still serving her life sentence. As for Ardale, the teenager who had been manipulated into committing the murder, he was granted a chance at parole after serving a significant portion of his sentence. He filed a petition for parole, stating that he had repented for his actions and wanted to turn his life around. The decision on his parole was still pending as of 2024. Thank you for watching.